Welcome to the Monday, Juneteenth edition of the PFF Forecast. Is the day after the U.S. Open. We usually record on Sunday evening. We are doing Monday special after the U.S. Open, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about how the bets landed, how many Wyndham's rewards points do we all have. I'm now an official Wyndham Clark. I feel like I started the bandwagon. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to hit a little bit of the D-Hop stuff with the Patriots, and we're going to close out with a little conversation about the Suns trade and whether it has any prayer in hell of happening. Let's rock. Brad, we talked about Wyndham Clark before the tournament went off. As I mentioned, I picked him in our tournament together. I picked him in the fifth round. And I was kind of poking a little bit of fun, I would say. Wasn't super happy with my team. I didn't like that I got the third pick. I really wanted either the first or second or the back end of the round. It obviously worked out for me. I now have had to change all of my loyalty. I used to be a Marriott guy, and now I'm going to have to be a Wyndham Resorts, hotel and resorts guy. That's just the facts.
Good night. Goodbye to the Bonvoy points. You're all in on the Wyndham 2-night stay, Clark. What branding? Where he's not even a brand. He just has a name, and that's just the beauty of the situation. Nobody wins more than a continental breakfast at the Wyndham Best Western Resort.
So I was like, this has to be an opportunity for them, right? And their Twitter was like dead silent. I didn't see them anywhere on social media. Are they even a company anymore? Like, what a complete nightmare for them to not capitalize on this opportunity. Because the other thing, which was really cool, and there's probably a lot of different issues that were had with the U.S. Open, but the one thing that you cannot argue with is that it was at least a guy that won with a cool story, some personality, like all of those things were great. Thank God it was him instead of Rory McIlroy, because like the narrative, it was just so much more enjoyable than it would have been to listen to these guys kind of opine about Rory. But I want to hear like how did kind of your bets land, and what were some of your big takeaways from the tournament, especially looking ahead to the British Open?
Yeah, of course. So first on the winner, I will say, like, sometimes I think we get a backlash too when one of the non-premier names wins, but it wasn't that he won because other guys played poorly throughout the entire weekend. Obviously, Sunday was a bit anticlimactic, but I saw there was a tweet. He didn't miss a fairway or a green. I think it was like he missed like two the entire weekend, like some absurd stat. So it's because Wyndham Clark played very, very well that he won this tournament, has been playing good golf, had a win earlier this season. My takeaways are, and sometimes I think you can fall in the trap of the very good players that come out on Sunday, they shoot 5-6 under, like your guy John Rahm, who also did probably help you win our pool with a nice Sunday. But for me, and he gets lost in the live shuffle, but we're going to a course overseas for the British Open where it's obviously a different landscape, a completely different setup than the U.S. Open. I think Cameron Smith from Australia is just the best iron player in the world right now, and I think it just consistently shows up where he just, even if the driver's not working for him on a links type course, you can kind of just spray it and just hope you avoid a pot bunker, but otherwise you're probably going to have a decent shot in. And I just trust him more from 250 in right now. I trust him more than any player in the world. A second thought I had, and it was a general thought, but I thought it was very interesting, was, I forget who the announcer was. Maybe it was friend of the show, Brandel Chambly, who was talking about this, but he was discussing how a lot of Japanese players don't do well at the PGA and the U.S. Open, and the rationale simply was they don't make courses like this in a smaller island that doesn't have the land to have 7,500-yard courses with these massive, layouts. It's not something the country does. But for precision players with narrow fairways, with guys that need to, be attacking flags, not putting on the green to lag up, like that's where a lot of the best players from the Asian Tour and Japan specifically show up. I think some of those players, Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, Sungjae Im, like they've all been consistently competitive in these majors, and it's not even their style of play. I'd probably look at them for next the next major as well.
Cameron Smith was my big kind of winner as well. Um, his putting is rock solid. I wanted to give you this kind of question here because the other takeaway I had was, and I feel like this is a broken record at this point, but I can't believe that Scotty Scheffler makes such good contact with the golf ball, given what his swing looks like. And I can't believe that given what his swing looks like, he's that bad of a putter. Like no one, it makes sense that Rory McIlroy, like if Rory McIlroy had me putting, I feel like we win the tournament. I got to be honest with you. That was like painfully bad, right? And I'm not going to like crap all over Rory, but like so expected, right? The dude is so good, tee to green. And then just, I mean, I guess he was decent approach. He hit every green. I don't think he got super aggressive, which is a whole nother mental issue. But if you combined Scotty Scheffler's like ball striking and Cam Smith's putting, that's the best player in the world by like a long margin. Like, is there any better combination? Like maybe you combine Rory and Cameron Smith, but I think Scheffler's kind of approach and his iron play, I would take over Rory.
I think you have it on the head. It's funny. It's like those quarterback like mashups, like Tom Brady's line with like Josh Allen. Yeah, but no, I think you nailed it. Because look, obviously you can make the argument Rory off the tee because he drove the ball 380 yards multiple times this weekend. But Scotty's obviously not short off the tee. And then like he attacks flags. I mean, he's gonna plant a couple of approach shots 4 feet from the hole for tap in birdies. Because like you said, he's not putting either, but he's still scoring better. Obviously not this weekend, but because he always is gonna have a handful of tap in birdies. Because his approach game is just absurd. I mean, I'm half kidding, but I think my wedge game from 100 yards and in this weekend in Carolina was rivaling Rory McIlroy. I didn't make a single putt the entire time, but like, yeah, you can get on the green from 100 yards out and give yourself a 15-footer, but he can't make any of those like we all can't, and pros can't.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I guess one question is how much of a part of the narrative do you think that Wyndham Clark is actually going to be? And I mean, he played amazingly well. I thought if you would put a highlight reel together of his up and downs and you like put Tiger Woods highlight reel of up and downs together, like I mean, Tiger's is better, but like if you like in one single tournament, that might have been some of the best short game play I've ever seen. The up and down that he had on Friday, where I mean, he hit 2 shots this weekend that you are like scared to try on the practice green, right? Full out, full swing flop shots. Paul Azinger, who I thought was mediocre at best on the call, said that he called them, what do you call them, like trick shots or something, which I think is like the oldest phrase. How could you sound more old and raggedy or whatever? But it was incredible. He got those up and down. He got up and down after hitting a ball further into a bush on his first attempt. And then I was like, there's no way he gets this out. He got it out, got up and down there. He hit that chip. I forget, was it on 12 maybe, where he actually played it like behind the hole. Azinger was like, there's no way this gets close. It rolled to like 6 feet and he made that putt. His putting was so solid all week. And so I don't think he's accurate enough off the tee. That still is a worrisome piece for me. And I just don't think that up and down around the green stuff is going to be that consistent. So I'm going to actually wait and see on Wyndham Clark. I love the story. I think, everything about his kind of mental makeup is impressive because everyone else melted down. Rory, if you don't want to call what Rory had a meltdown, then I don't know what planet you're living on. The dude was hitting the ball as pure as you possibly can off the tee, hit every green and literally psyched himself out because he couldn't make a putt and couldn't go after a pin. Ricky Fowler melted down and Scotty Scheffler, I thought played, he was not really in the picture for a long time there. So he was like the only guy Wyndham Clark was that kept it together mentally and it could have fallen off, right? There were multiple times where it could have fallen apart. That 5 wood, I think that he hit, was it on 14? Was the par 5 was an absolutely incredible shot, right? After giving a couple back, he stripes it down. and is able to two putt for birdie. But I'm going to wait and see on Wyndham Clark. Where do you stand on him?
Yeah, no. So the big thing you just touched on, people talk about a lot with the PGA and the US Open again, which is like you're gonna make some bogeys or maybe even a double, but how can you bounce back? And frankly, our guy Xander Schauffele, who was kind of my favorite to win it, obviously was first round leader with Ricky Fowler. I did win a little bit on that, got split in half, but nevertheless, but he blew up too. My guy Cam Young actually did kind of make a little bit of a charge, and then I think went triple double on 2 holes, and he was just done after that. Like his recovery, his avoiding some of those holes was probably the difference. But yeah, the Scotty thing too. Like we woke up that morning, he was at 7. Basically, the final scores were their scores going into the day. I want to say, yeah, Ricky, Wyndham, Rory, and Scheffler all shot par. And I said, if Scheffler gets in the clubhouse at 11, I think he's going to win this tournament. And yeah, he just didn't have it. It's been surprising. I wouldn't call it choking. He hasn't had one of those like put the fear of God in your opponent type Sundays, and he is that caliber of player. We need to see that of him though.
Yeah, the only guy that came out on the front 9 and did anything was Wyndham Clark. He was the only person that put the gas pedal down. So I thought it was really, really cool and awesome to see him win. Let's move ahead to the British Open. You mentioned Cam Smith. I think he's 20-1 to open. Now he's obviously a defending champion there. So I think there will be a fair number of bets placed on him by the time that we get there. But I would and I will be placing a little wager on him at 20-1. The favorite is Rory McIlroy, hilariously. Now, he did win at Royal Hoylake what feels like 40 years ago. So maybe he, has a resurrection here. John Rahm is 10-1. Scotty Scheffler, 10-1. Brooks is 12-1. Jordan Spieth and Cameron Smith at 20-1. Xander, 22. Justin Thomas somehow is at 25-1, despite the fact that he didn't break 80 on day 2. Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, also 25. Shane Lowry, Cantlay at 28. Fitzpatrick, DJ, and Fleetwood, along with Terrell Hatton at 33. Finau, Homa, Cam Young, Justin Rose at 40. Tom Kim at 45-1. Hideki, 50-1. So what are some of the early British Open bets that you like?
Yeah, so first, I think some guys we've been betting recently, I'm just kind of avoiding this point. Patrick Cantlay just does not show up for majors. Maybe that's a narrative. Maybe that's a dumb thing to say, but he'll finish top 25, but he just does not threaten these big tournaments. He has the game to do it, but just doesn't seem to put it together. I do like Tommy Fleetwood, another guy that had a great Sunday. Maybe finished higher than maybe he was representative of the entire 4 days. But again, a good iron player that right now I think is putting the ball pretty well, and it's going to matter in this environment. He's one that I think is interesting at 30-1. Hideki, 50-1 Hideki. I think his ball striking was great. He had a blow up or two on the back 9, the early back 9 on Sunday that kind of just threw him out of the tournament. One more too that we've been betting and again, maybe needs to break through in another major, but DeChambeau's recovery on, I think it was 15, where he drove the ball like across the other tee box and then hit an absolute moonshot. I don't know if you saw this, like over a tee box onto the green he was on, and then hit like a 12-foot putt for birdie. It was like a ridiculous up and down. But I think he's playing confidently, and I also think he's just like not really thinking about non-golf things at this point. He's back to just caring about golf. And he's kind of been consistently showing up for these tournaments. So a couple of those guys make sense. And then, like you mentioned, I get that Cam Smith probably will be maybe by first tee the prohibitive favorite, but I think it will be warranted given how he's playing right now.
Yeah, I do think that Rory will remain the favorite. I mean, look, his ball striking statistics are going to be absolutely amazing. And I think that will continue to keep him up there at the top. Let me throw a couple others that I really like out there. You mentioned Fleetwood. I think I bet him, to win. I bet him top 5, top 10 as well. So ended up, making some money there. And I like, his form, obviously heading out into a major that is across the pond. Now, he's never won in the US, has won a bunch on the DP World Tour, the European Tour. So I think some good vibes for him. You mentioned players going back across. Cam Young at 40-1. You remember last year, he was right there in the mix. I think it really favors his ability to just pound the ball. He's also a great ball striker. You mentioned DeChambeau. He's at 60-1. I do like that price as well. Getting like way down there now. Wyndham Clark went off at about 90-1. I think opened around 115 or 100-1. Phil Mickelson is at 100-1. he didn't make the cut. I think you'll see people kind of quickly hop off the Phil Mickelson train. I'm not going to do that. I think reading too much into this US Open is very incorrect. It's a super wonky course. It was a super weird setup, very non-traditional kind of major play there. So and get back on board with him as well. I thought DJ, it was interesting. He faded late, but I thought Dustin Johnson played minus like 10 total holes better than anyone else. And so, I think is one to watch as well. And he's at 33-1.
I think that's spot on. He even talked about how recovering from his back injury, he just feels way better now. And the last couple majors, he hasn't put 4 good rounds together. But when he does, he's arguably better than anybody else still in golf. If he plays 4 good rounds in a row, I'd put him up against anybody. So that's a good shout. And then, the long shot I forgot to mention too was Siwoo Kim is 100-1 on DraftKings, who I like as well. So, but yeah, DJ is one of those where it's like the way you talked about Brooks in the first couple majors, getting DJ at 33-1 price, even given his performance in the last couple big tournaments, is probably a misprice. Or throw a top 5 or top 10 in on him at plus money, and you're probably getting a good bet there.
Yeah. By the way, the British Open is not the next tournament, in case anyone is wondering. It's a few months away, or not a few months, a few weeks away. It is next month, correct? Do you have the dates in front of you? It's also on NBC. So the question that I have is, are we going to get more of Paul Azinger, the Zinger? I don't know what your take was. I don't want to hear what you thought about his commentary if you listened to it at all. But has there ever been a nickname, Zinger, that fit less with the way the person commentated than it did for Paul Azinger? I swear to God, I don't understand what it is with the inability to show any kind of emotion or energy. And it felt like he was just so negative about so many shots. Like every shot was just a terrible shot. But what was your take on him?
Yeah. So first, quickly, the British Open's in exactly a month. It's July 19th, 23rd, I think are the dates. Yes, the opposite of a Zinger. He honestly fit. There were all these complaints about the LA Country Club, how they basically tried to refuse any public attendance and tried to buy every ticket just for members of the club. And that's why it was quiet. You had a guy like Matt Fitzpatrick. When Matt Fitzpatrick tells you you're boring and have a bad environment, you're probably pretty boring, because that guy doesn't seem like the most energetic ball of fun on planet Earth. And I think that's the only reason why the Zinger fit this tournament, because it was a boring overall malaise type of environment. But yeah, golf they're getting in the right direction. They need to figure it out. You don't need to be screaming and have people throwing beers on the course, but you can find a middle ground to where you can get the casual fan more engaged in these big tournaments.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right, before we move on to the next piece of content here, which will be DeAndre Hopkins and the New England Patriots, I want to tell you guys quickly about using promo code FORECAST, FORECAST. Get yourself a PFF Plus subscription for 25% off with that promo code. Go use it right now on pff.com and the PFF app. It is where you will get all of our unlocked content, all of our betting tools, all of our fantasy tools as well, and you will not want to miss that. So you want to grab that now. Trust me, I promise you will want to get it now before it is too late, and get that promo code as well. Get it for the whole year and get yourself draft and free agency content to boot. Also, if you are looking to try and figure out some way to stay engaged in football during the off season, may I interest you in a little best ball? DraftKings now has one of the best ball setups that you can find. Best ball on DraftKings is bigger and better than ever. $10 million in guaranteed cash prizes are up for grabs. Join DraftKings biggest best ball contest today. Get your first entry back in the DraftKings dollars as soon as the draft is finished. Enter DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest and snake draft your team for the season. Remember, the cool thing about best ball, you don't have to manage your team. It's fantastic. So you can just go ahead and draft the players, and then let the season play out and see how you do. So it's phenomenal. Teams with the most points at the end of the season will have a shot to take home a $1 million top prize. Go download the DraftKings app and sign up with promo code PFF. Join DraftKings $10 million best ball tournament and get your first entry back with promo code PFF on DraftKings. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. One per customer. Opt-in required with $10 entry fee. Bonus issued as 10 DK dollars. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com/promotions for details. All right. DeAndre Hopkins. Let's spend a few minutes on this. This is what we're at, Brad. We're at the point in the season in the offseason where we were talking about whether GMs known as players are able to recruit actively other players and get them to join their team. Totally new. I've never seen this before. I don't know where this is coming from. Really brand new content here, thanks to Matt Judon and the New England Patriots. What do you make of the situation you think gets done?
At a certain point, I do. I was always confused by this entire storyline just because I didn't know what the relationship was like between Bill O'Brien and DeAndre Hopkins. But if you were trying to identify rosters that probably needed his services more than anybody else, and that it made sense from hey, we have a rookie contract quarterback and honestly a cheap roster overall. They're bottom 5, I think, in cash spending in the entire league. Like, who it made sense, it probably is them. I think it goes a long way in helping. You bump down Devontae Parker, you bump down Tyquan Thornton, the rest of the guy, Juju Smith-Schuster, who sounds like his knee is bothering him a little bit already again. So it does make sense, and there's no question. I think they will use him effectively. I think we'll see him a lot in the slot. We'll see him in, their red area performance last year was pretty poor as well, and I think that's where Hopkins could make probably the biggest impact. Is just, hey, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith and Devontae Parker weren't doing as much as we thought they would. In third down and red zone situations, you bring in Hopkins and kind of see if you can rectify that. So I kind of do. I mean, Judon, look, to his credit, shoot or shoot. He's been actively pursuing a lot of players. Has not been super successful in his GM endeavors the last couple off seasons, but he seems pretty confident in this one. And I'm thinking he wouldn't be as confident based on his past history of kind of striking out with some top guys.
Shoot or shoot. That is a good point. If Bill Belichick can convince DeAndre Hopkins to reunite with Bill O'Brien and catch passes for Mac Jones, he is a wizard, an absolute wizard. I think Mac Jones has got to be the one rooting for this more than anyone else, because to your point, you look at that receiving core, you see that Juju's already got TikTok knee, and you're in a world of hurt there. They do not have a good offensive supporting cast. I mean, we talked about this with CJ Stroud and part of our thesis on kind of betting some unders there and some tail events for the Houston Texans is that, he played in Ohio State with some of the best receivers on the planet. Mac Jones did the same thing, right? Played with the best receivers on the planet. It was Bryce Young that didn't get the benefit of playing with those receivers. And then you go to New England, and I mean, even Tom Brady couldn't overcome the fact that those receivers couldn't get open. So you think Mac Jones is going to? Now, the interesting thing is that DeAndre Hopkins has not been getting open nearly as kind of frequently as some of the other top tier receivers. He's not as much of a separator, but it's all relative. And, he also has great hands. So you at least put him in a position to catch some passes over kind of the replacement options in New England. I think this is a big thing I think the Patriots need to get this done. I think if they don't get this done, this is going to be a rough season potentially for Mac Jones. Like, I could very much see the Patriots supposedly made a trade offer for Aaron Rodgers, right? That got rejected. Can you confirm that? Is that true?
I haven't personally confirmed it, but I tend to believe it, to be honest. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't at least have the conversation.
Yeah. So I think it spells, this is a huge one for Mac Jones. I mean, it's interesting, though, from Hopkins' standpoint. I would see him going to New England as a sign that like no other teams were really interested, because I see this as a very unattractive spot for DeAndre Hopkins, a team that is worse than, he's going for a team that's worse than the division to a team that's worse than the division in the New England Patriots, and playing with a quarterback that, where would you say Mac Jones falls? Between 20 and 25?
Below a healthy Kyler Murray, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
He's below a high school Caleb Williams.
Correct. Yes, he is. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I also agree with your point that they need to get it done, even though at the same time, I will say it's not going to make my opinion of them like dramatically change at all, but I still think they just should do it if you're trying to keep up in this AFC East. And also, if you are going to say, okay, either Mac Jones is going to take a step and we're going to say, okay, you know what? With some better weapons, he showed that he can maybe be a fringe type guy, or he's not, and you start over, and you're probably not going to be bad enough to get Caleb Williams, but maybe get somebody else in that range. Give Belichick maybe one last try at a top 15 type pick player, see what he can do. As for your attractiveness for Hopkins, I do think this is one part of those comes back to like at the end of the day, like having a stable organization that has a high floor, like it is going to come back to benefit you a lot of different ways. And so, like, I don't think players, even still, like they don't view the Patriots the way you and I would have after last year. They would say, "Oh, the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick Patriots, like, yeah, they had a down year, but like they still could be that, next year." And I don't think we either of us agree with that, but I think it's much easier for them to be like, you know what? Yeah, get Bill Belichick going, get Bill O'Brien back in the fold, and we can make the playoffs. They're not saying, oh, the Dolphins, Jets, and Bills are clearly better, which they all are.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. By the way, when is it time to to get some of those draft videos up about that draft class with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and a bunch of scrubs? I'm really looking forward to uncovering those this year. Because yeah, it was some engaging content. I still think I will like the Justin Fields or anyone but Mac Jones syndicate. We can continue to live off of that victory for a while. Because yeah, I think it's looking kind of bleak. I don't know that we don't talk a lot about Mac Jones, and probably for good reason, but I do think this is certainly a make it or break it season. I mean, he got benched for Bailey Zappi last year, so he better be rooting for DeAndre Hopkins. I'd be sending Hopkins gifts at this point. I'm not sure.
Do whatever it takes. I would absolutely do whatever it takes. At least because it buys you a job elsewhere. Like someone will take a chance on Mac Jones. So any stat, any throw to DeAndre Hopkins can go a long way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, we're going to close out here with some of the Phoenix Suns stuff. Before we get there, if you have not already joined the PFF Printing Press Discord, you're missing out. Join over 1,000 members of the Printing Press Discord and come enjoy a great community of people that love to bet on anything, by the way. So if you are looking to stay engaged, this off season is probably the best place to do it. We're going to talk golf. We're going to talk WNBA. Ben Brown is posting his picks in there. Judah's talking baseball. We've got people betting on the Oscars in there and cashing bets, by the way, I should mention. So it's a great community. Go get involved there. It's completely free. I would argue, like, I've actually told people about it and they've gone, how much does it cost? And I've just said, no, it's free. So people can't really believe it, but it is. So go enjoy it. The link is in the description, and also we'll tweet it out as well. So you can go get it there. If you are looking for something that's not free, but is certainly worth your money, especially with the summer heat coming your way, I would go check out Manscaped. I just got my new Manscaped kit. And let me tell you that if you haven't already heard, it's smooth sack summer, and you want to make sure that you're grooving with the smooth sack. So I can't believe I'm saying this. This read is absolutely unbelievable. But dive headfirst into a fantastic feeling summer with Manscaped. The Performance Package 4.0 has everything you need to prepare for your summer bod. Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer features cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. I can attest to this. It also has great battery life and a little flashlight to make sure that you are staying safe. The other thing I'll mention is I just got the beard trimmer, and that is a really good product. They've improved that tremendously. I've been using it now, and comes with a lot of extra stuff as well. So I would definitely check that out. Use promo code PFF and get yourself a little 20% off at manscaped.com. PFF, manscaped.com. Go make it happen. Is that the best read that you've heard in a while?
I thought you were ad-libbing smooth sack summer. I actually was going to give you some props for the alliteration there, but that was all that.
No, that's all them. I hesitated on saying it because I was like, can I actually say this? This is unbelievable.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I will say that I don't know if you have used it, but their products are solid. I've been using it for quite some time, and yeah, I would legitimately buy the product if I were not sent it. That's just me. All right, the Suns traded basically everything they had left. Chris Paul, bunch of picks that they hadn't already traded for Kevin Durant, for Bradley Beal. So their team now consists of Cameron Payne, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and DeAndre Ayton. I'm not even joking. That is who they have under contract. And so I'm curious, Brad, we've seen this move happen before. Give me the odds. What are the odds that this works out? And by work out, I think we have to stipulate what that means. I think this works out I think if they just make it to multiple finals or win a single world championship, it works out. What are the chances it works out?
I think that's fair. You had some Jock Landale erasure in there, which is tough to hear. Tough to hear. But anyway, if he's still there, who knows? I think it is a fair caveat. I was going to say, yeah, make multiple or win one is perfect. We talked about this pre-show, and I do think the NBA is interesting where, especially we saw it this season, the regular season and the playoffs can, to a degree, obviously the Nuggets were the best team in both, but they can be different sports. They can be different entirely in many different ways. You can make trades at the deadline and do things to dramatically reshape your roster, and you're going to shrink to a 7-man rotation come playoff time anyway. So yes, you want depth. Yes, you need depth. The Nuggets having Christian Brown and their 9th and 10th plus player being meaningfully impactful additions is probably why they are, coming off a Larry O'Brien trophy. But so anyway, I put the odds at like 5%. But if you get a healthy trio of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and if DeAndre Ayton can just like get out of his own head and just honestly be a rim protector and a floor runner and just have like 6 dunks a game and a couple blocks a game, that quattro, a healthy quartet of those players in the playoffs, like they're going to have some games where they drop an efficient 120 and no one can beat them. It's just like we talked about. Can those guys play 45 minutes a game, all in their, in their mid 30s for Durant and Beal? I don't know about that.
Just thinking about playing 140-minute game has me a little concerned about those two guys. I mean, I think Devin Booker is probably going to end up playing a bunch of point guard. I don't think they want to move Ayton. That doesn't seem to be the case. Frank Vogel has had success with big guys in the past. I think Zach Lowe was mentioning that on his podcast. And he has also had success dealing with these, kind of super teams, right? He went in with LeBron and AD and got a lot out of them and that entire team. That team played great defense, which is something that the Phoenix Suns need to do because they got, kind of ramshackled by the Denver Nuggets. I would say I'm going to give it 20% to work. 15. Here's the difference. I think everyone is certainly looking back and saying, this reminds me of when KD put together that team in Brooklyn. I believe that Bradley Beal is less washed than James Harden. And there is a big difference between Devin Booker and Kyrie Irving in that I'm pretty confident Devin Booker is going to be on the court. And the biggest thing that we're going to talk about with Devin Booker is his game, as opposed to not playing games, which was kind of the deal with Kyrie. The big, I think, unknown here is KD's kind of sustainability, because when he's on the court, he was amazing. I think he was 50, 40, 90, 50, 50 or something absurd like that this year. And, but he played, he missed a ton of games. If he misses a ton of games, this team is replacing him with something really bad. And so that's how you end up having like Devin Booker have to expend a ton of energy to make the playoffs. And by the time they get to the playoffs, they have no depth and they've got injuries and it's just a complete disaster. It takes a lot of kind of resilience to make it through the playoffs. I think that's the thing that people overlook when they see these super teams, is it does take that ability to kind of push past some of those challenges during the playoff run, where a team like the Denver Nuggets is so good with that because they've got so much depth that you mentioned, and then Jokic is just a rock. Like you're not going to injure Jokic. And what would it take to injure Jokic? You need like a machete or something, or like a tranquilizer.
One of his horses bucking him off in Serbia. That's his kryptonite at this point. No, it's a good point though.
He doesn't get bucked off by horses, Brad. He bucks them himself. Okay.
Yeah.
The horse that bucks him off gets injured. That's what happens.
Like his horses have lower back problems for sure. It's a tough combo. No, I think you actually did touch on 2 key points that I love there. So if I'm not mistaken, I think Vogel had a big hand in kind of developing Miles Turner in Indy before he got fired and moved on, and like kind of had a career revival where Turner was an exciting, fun rookie. Then kind of the league figured him out. He kind of had to transition his game a little bit, be a different player. Maybe you can do that with Ayton. And the second piece is, and we're not like joking, like. Yeah, like Bradley Beal's been in Washington and hasn't caused a fuss. And Booker, I think they're honestly 3 dudes that just live and breathe basketball and don't really care about much else. And like that is going to matter. And it does matter.
James Harden only cares about basketball. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude, James Harden showing up on time to the game is a miracle every time it happens. Like, someone in like the front office is like, oh, thanks. Like, James is here. Like, we can play tonight. Like, thank the Lord.
There has to be like a person that's just dedicated to making sure that like James Harden makes it to the arena.
I'm telling you, there is probably a staffer whose main role is just to make sure James Harden is there an hour before tip and has like a toothbrush and like some deodorant and like, yes.
Yeah. And that guy's, whoever that person is, they're paid more than like WNBA players are paid. The highest WNBA players are paid.
Probably
make more than a WNBA team in salaries.
But they probably still work pretty darn hard. Like it's not, they
yeah,
probably
they work
much,
hard,
but they probably do.
It's a 7. I mean, I'm sure there are perks that come with it, but it's like a 7-day a week situation.
It's a 24/7 operation for sure.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I think it's a good point, right? All three of those guys are just hoopers. So it'll be interesting. The West is becoming like better and better by the moment, and the East kind of thinner and thinner. We might see Dame Lillard go to Miami. I think that makes more sense for him now. I mean, it's just increasingly more and more sense. Like I just don't know where he's going to go in the West that's going to kind of make it work. The only thing that I'm still kind of intrigued by is whether the Warriors are going to hit the reset button and what that means for Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And if they're pressing the reset button, is there a Dame Steph combination that I kind of just want to see from a guilty pleasure perspective? Because can you imagine the floor spacing with Dame Lillard and Steph Curry? I mean, that would be absolutely amazing.
You literally need to guard baseline to half court line on every possession. Otherwise, you're at risk. Yeah. So Draymond opted out of his deal. I think it was $27.5 million for next year. He opted out of. I don't know. If I'm them, I think Klay, Draymond are gone, and I'm probably like shopping Jordan Poole. Or maybe I guess once Draymond leaves, maybe then Jordan Poole can kind of settle in and recalibrate. But yeah, I would say, all right, let's just take Steph and just hit everything else reset. Lillard had a comment how the Heat losing the finals makes it more likely he'll go there. So I imagine he would like refuse to go to the Warriors. But that would be, I mean, that's what you dream about. Like that's a legit like NBA Jam duo that just, you don't even need to rebound or play defense. Just put up bombs the entire time.
Yeah. I remember when the Warriors lost, blew a 3-1 lead, and that enabled Kevin Durant to go there. Yeah, similar situation. I would love to see Dame Lillard in Miami. I think that would be a lot of fun. That team would be cool to watch. They have a lot of guys that can pull it from pretty far. Obviously, with Hero, who didn't play in the finals, you have Duncan Robinson. And I think it's clear as you watch that team in the finals that you need. I just keep coming back to this, like Jimmy Butler's lack of aggression. If he was injured, if he was so injured that he couldn't drive to the basket, like he was healthy enough to get to the paint and then couldn't go up to finish in any way, shape, or form, then you need another person that can handle the ball in crunch time. And I think that could be Dame Lillard. All right. We've hit 3 sports. I think that's pretty good for a middle of June PFF forecast. We'll be back with you on Wednesday evening. I keep promising that we're going to do division previews. Who knows? Tune in to see if it happens. We have people in the Discord wondering, when is it going to happen? When is George going to say nice things about every team in the NFL? When are we going to dig into the PFF data to tell you who is going to win and who is going to be the Lions this year? You'll want to tune in to see that. So maybe it'll come on Wednesday. You should check us out then and share the podcast. If you enjoyed this, pass it along to a friend who's looking to find some good football and other sports betting content. We greatly appreciate it. We love you all. See you on Wednesday. Peace.